What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bringing incredible guests from all over the world. So sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is a intuitive reader, 5D astrologer, medium, HHP, yogi, teacher, and writer. Please welcome Jeannine Kim. Jeannine, welcome to the show.
Dina, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
There's something on in your bio that I don't know what it is. What is a 5D astrologer? I think we all know what astrology is, but what does 5D mean?
It's I started the 5D astrology years ago, and you're right. It's not out there quite often. It's brewing now, but essentially it's two things. One of it is it's a focus on different planets. So we have our basic planets in our solar system, Venus, Mars, Mercury, all that. These really bring in the planets and the trans-Neptunian objects and the asteroids from anything that is beyond what we could have seen over the past couple thousand years.
Okay.
So that's part of it. And the other part is it works in a different way. So it taps really aspects of who we are from beyond this time and space.
Oh, wow. Okay. Also, what is an HHP?
Holistic health practitioner.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. So you have all the things to really help guide and heal people.
Right. I do.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So I know that someone as an intuitive gets a lot of labels on them, or even an astrologer or a medium. Did you know that you were always these things, or did you grow into them?
Well, my earliest awareness of being different was 5 years old with my mom. Yeah. Although, but it wasn't like, when you are these things, you just think the whole world is like this.
Yeah, right.
You start to get the feedback that it's not. So that feedback accumulated. But my mom, we were going to a place. I was adopted from the cradle in Chicago. You probably are aware of that, up in Evanston. And this was back in the 60s. And we were going to do a little philanthropy thing and taking pictures. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and we're driving there, no GPS, this is the 70s.
Okay. Yeah.
And my mom is like panicking, trying to find her way. She didn't know where she's going. And the whole time I'm telling her, Mom, I had a dream last night. And I was telling her about this house. And then when we finally get there, she just froze because everything I said was right in front of her. And of course, we had never been there before. And I still see the house as it is. And so I was excited. I'm like, hey, look at that house. And and so, we all want our mamas to love us, right? And I was like, oh no, this is bad. And I kept at it. And she was like, no. And so I interpreted that as not.
Yeah.
And so that continued to happen. I could tell you a gazillion more stories, but I just kept pushing it down. And it wasn't until I left the financial industry and just followed my passion with what I love, where I was in an environment of healers who saw it immediately. They're like, oh, Jeannine, look what you could do. I'm like, really? I can? And so, yeah. So then I realized.
Yeah. And so now, how do people embrace that these days? Because I think there is a label, misconception, stereotype that people that are not maybe in this higher consciousness place would want to put on you or someone like you that has the gifts that you do.
Well, as I mentioned before, like my journey, I'm going to scoot it back just a little to answer your question. I moved from Chicago to San Diego in the late 90s, and with a different husband at the time. And then I was still an IPO trader. I was working in La Jolla, and I was, an IPO trader, Series 7, Series 63, but all these extra things that I've been reading and studying throughout the 90s. I became a vegetarian in the 90s. I was doing yoga, reading Shirley MacLaine books. They were all very secret.
Yeah.
Now I'm in California, and it's like, woo, these people kind of understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And yet when I said I'm going to leave the financial industry and go follow my dream and become a healer, like I literally heard the word healer one morning after the morning rush of trading. Like, what is that? And so I went to school at night for massage therapy, and I started, being a vegetarian, and I did Reiki. And one friend and family member after another was like, whoa, that is too much. That is too weird. You are crazy. You are. And when I really started to practice my intuitiveness, I was so afraid of the crazy.
Yeah.
That even I had to like be kind with myself.
Sure.
And convince myself, like, no, this isn't crazy. You went in there, you saw something, you said it, look at their response.
Right.
It was pretty darn specific.
Yeah.
And so I get it. And so my goal is to really fast forward, share with people that, how I am is just a canary in the coal mine. We are all inherently able to connect to something greater.
Sure.
And it is not crazy. And what is crazy and weird? It's just something we don't know.
Right.
So there's a lot more to say about that. But yeah, it's been hard. I've lost friends, I've lost family, and yet I am this.
But you what you have and what you offer are such incredible gifts. Not everybody has them. But I do believe that everybody has some intuition at a very basic level, if they're really tuning into themselves. I don't know. I'm very intuitive, and so I think that, but in a lot of women, though, mostly, but I feel like that a lot of us have that. But when someone steps out and says, I'm an intuitive, I'm this, I'm that, then they kind of look at you a little sideways, like, oh, I'm scared of what that means.
Completely. And my current husband and I, we've been together 20 years. That first husband went bye-bye. I think, I did all that changing. And,
Yeah.
but I met the love of my life, and I met him in massage school. I was his teacher. Oops. But then it turned out well. It turned out fine. It's okay. And so we moved to Santa Fe, and I was like, oh, even better. Like, these people I could just free. Well, I went to a party with a friend. I was running a spa at the time, and she invited us to her house. Artists, musicians, healers. That's Santa Fe, right?
Yeah.
And I show up, and she announces, Jeannine, she's an intuitive. And I'm like, cool, they're all going to get it. And like, they all scattered to a corner. And I had one lady in a moo-moo, like, whoa, yeah, I could talk to my kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, they still don't. They're still afraid of it. And this is like in the early 2000s. So it's a fun journey, but it's, we are all born this way. And like you said, to me, it's very much a practice of letting go of our conditioning. Most children have it.
Yeah.
But what happens is the parents, how they are met. Are they supported with it? Or is it like, no? That allows it to either blossom or get tucked away. But I work with tons of people in bringing it back up and out again.
Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, I understand what an intuitive is. What do you think that people's thought is of what that means to them, or what they've told you, besides being crazy? But what is it about that scares them?
Well, I feel two things. I feel like on a bigger, let's just call it maybe esoteric level, like deep down in their soul, what is scary about that is that when you start listening to a higher truth, I call it more of a vertical existence. That doesn't mean you're up in the clouds. I mean vertical, feet firmly planted on the ground.
Sure.
But when you hear those messages, then you no longer live this horizontal existence. And on a soul level, subconscious level, that's kind of scary, because if our truth is different than our tribe, that primal brain is like, uh-oh, danger, Will Robinson. This is not good. Bad things might happen to us. And it's kind of true because, hey, when you want to make over your kitchen, it's going to be messy for a while. You're going to have to eat out in the backyard in a Bunsen burner for a couple of weeks. But in the end, it's going to be great. But it's that mid part that could really be off-putting for many people, because you're directed. You're utterly free. And the second part is just, I think it's, that label of crazy. Look at what I do. Back in the day, and even now, you could be, burned at the stake, figuratively, literally. That's what people did to people like us, called witches, and, just kind of put to the side. although there are other sections of history that have fully embraced it, like
Sure.
tribes people, where, they honor what that capacity is. So it's breaking the mold. It's just being,
Sure.
what people giggle when they look at me is like, you were an IPO trader, now you do this. I'm like, well,
Yeah, it's
it's always
wild.
intuitive. So
So
anyway.
how fascinating is that? Like, you were living a completely different life to where you are today, and I'm sure you're much happier.
Oh my goodness. Like I completely,
Yeah.
completely much happier. And it's because when you're in alignment with yourself, I look at alignment as like a plug in the wall. You could order all this stuff on Amazon, but
Yeah.
if you're half plugged in, the delivery guy's never going to see your address.
Right.
So when you're fully plugged into your truth, man, it just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why why is it important for people to know that they have someone like you they can go to heal and just process? Because the gifts that you have allow someone to get to a place in their life that perhaps they've never been able to get to on medicine or on like therapy. Is because what your gifts are completely different than the regular, everyday accepted society, like the society's accepted way of healing.
I get to the root of it.
Yeah.
I get to the root of it. And, the way I see our physicality, it's such a great question that you're asking, is that we have 4 bodies: spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body, and then the physical is the holograph version
Yeah.
of those 3. You hear the buzzword now, somatic healing, mind-body connection. These therapies have been studied for thousands of years. I
Yeah.
have also done traditional Chinese medicine. That is my background. And so when you understand that you work with the energetic first,
Mhm.
and that creates the physical, I
Yeah.
approach people by hearing their intuitive, what the intuitive aspect of it is calling to them, their soul. I could see it in the astrology chart. And I think when I show that to people, it relieves them. They're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's a blueprint. I was meant to be this way. And the astrology is language. It's a language of numbers. It's
Yeah.
like looking at the weather map or the stock market. It's patterning of blueprint of numbers that was there when you were born. So it's very informative. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Wild. Hi, guys. This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. I'm here to share another exciting partnership with you. I have joined forces with doTERRA. They are the leading provider of high quality essential oils. I've got some here I like to consume, the ones that are consumable. So, like sweet orange is really great. I also really, really love their toothpaste. Natural whitening and just kind of really helps clean your mouth. We do carry a lot of germs in our mouth, but I've loved this toothpaste. I've ordered it many times. These are some supplements. Here is the Lifelong Vitality Pack. Really great products, high quality products. Definitely recommend it. I also really love the collagen. NMN is a proven anti-aging product. So the collagen and the NMN together is a real game changer. I'm big into collagen. I believe it. I've been taking it for like 20 years before it's even gotten so popular. And that's probably why I maintain my skin elasticity, my hair and nails. I highly recommend checking out doTERRA if you're a fan of high quality essential oils. Not all essential oils are created the same. Go click the links in the description, sign up, or take advantage of one of my bundles that I'm recommending to you with the toothpaste, also the cleaning products and the supplements. So you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you, and stay tuned for more to come. I actually see repeating numbers all the time. I've probably been seeing them for the last year, and I never did before. And it's like, whenever I talk to someone like yourself that has these gifts, I always want to ask, like, what is your thought on that? Because it's nonstop, constant. And it's like, it's so much I can't ignore it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, first time you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Make a wish, right? But it's like every day, several times a day for the last year.
Girl, that means you are in alignment. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Yeah.
And the truth will set you free.
That's amazing. Because I'm just like, that's the first time I've heard that. Can you tell us a story of someone that may have come to you that, believed in what you were doing and they needed your help to heal, to get some answers and what that looked like for them, their journey, and maybe perhaps what they were struggling with that you helped them uncover?
Absolutely. I will. I have a pretty intense past life story coming up that I would love to share. Are you okay if
Okay.
I share that one?
Sure. Yes,
Free to-
go ahead.
I mean, label free. I have a feeling you people are pretty open, so I'm going to go there. It was actually pretty early on in my work, and I was teaching massage at the time, and I was getting used to the visions that came to me. I was still trying to reconcile what was happening. Anyway, I was working on this. It was a student, and she was in an intensive training, so she was there for 4 weeks. And every time I got near her, I put my hands on her, and I was doing some back work, showing another
Sure.
student how to do it. And all of a sudden, I get this flash of this visual. And it was a vision. It wasn't
Yes.
a conjured thought. So there's a subtle difference. She's hung, and I saw the black tights. They were very thick, and I saw the dress. I could smell the smells. I could still hear the rope on the tree, and I could hear all these people rushing in. It's like they did it to her. I didn't see her face.
Wow.
And so I was like, I took my hands off. I was a little
Yes.
scared. I'm like, what is this? And I processed it. I'm like, I can't share it with her. She's a student. I don't want
Yeah.
to hear because the delivery is everything.
Sure.
And it wouldn't leave me. And she's like, Jeannine, I know you got something that day. Please share it with me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, but let's take it slow. So I'm like, this is what I saw. And then she froze and she got really, you could welling up with tears and she
Yeah.
just left. I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm going to get fired. I just messed this girl's soul up, right?
Yeah.
Like, what have I done? And so she came back to me a couple days later and she's like, do you have a minute? And she whipped out these pictures and she told me that she worked in accounting and that she'd always wanted to come to do this healing retreat, but her husband at the time wouldn't let her and he was very violent. And he had gotten so upset that she had booked the training.
Yeah.
When she did, because she would have to leave her state, that he abused her so badly. He had choked her so bad, she put her in the hospital. Her eyes had bulged out, everything. Like she was showing me the pictures.
Wow.
But she had, she left him. And so the reason why I get these visions of past lives, it's not just to see, hey, look, I was this in another life. I mean, that's fun. That's cool. I love doing that. But I intend to do it because I fully believe that we meet those old thresholds with new tools, new capacities.
Yeah.
Here to move beyond them. And so right there, I said, well, that past life showed up again. But look where you are today. And you lived, you got away. You had a voice, you had freedom, you made a choice, and it's a completely different outcome. Now that dynamic is over.
Yeah. Wow.
No more guys like that, no more people like that in her life, because she had a capacity to take her further, and it changed her life completely. So her hearing that, she's like, these tears welled up because I thought I was doing something wrong.
Sure.
Really, she had to go through it to break free of it. Does that make sense? So it completely like weight off her shoulders and she felt elated that it was more than just shame on you for not
Right.
sooner. Like she realized it was spirit. She had to go through it. It was her.
Yeah. What do you think when people question that? Like, oh, why should I have to go through that again? Or there's no such thing as a past life, because I'm sure a lot of people have that thought.
Oh my gosh, so many people do. And I ended up, I don't feel like I need, they don't need to believe past life because the way I see it is everything is energy first. And that's actually, I think where science and spirituality meet is on that very concept. Everything is energy first. So it could also be perceived as ancestral stories. Which you see those continuously repeat because when we're born, our energy matches the lineage perfectly. And so I just happen to see it through the lens of the rooting of past lives, right? Where we could also see it as, that is a family story. They're both ideal. But
Sure.
if they don't believe it, they don't necessarily have to. I get it. But when you do lean into it, then you could just almost give yourself some relief. Like,
Yeah.
this goes deeper than today. This goes deeper. And sometimes we oftentimes feel that. Like, where is this coming from? Like, my mind knows better. Where is it coming from? And the last thing I'll say is, I don't believe we have to stay in bad situations. That is not what I'm
No.
saying.
No.
But say, like, I'm a 16-year-old girl living in Chicago, learning how to drive, driving down the Dan Ryan in the middle of a snowstorm, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
spin out and I say to myself, you know what? I'm never going to drive in snow again. I'm not going to live anywhere in Chicago. And my whole life then winds around not doing that. So then 40 years later, I'm on the same Dan Ryan. It's starting to snow. And the 16-year-old girl bubbles up.
Yeah.
And I white knuckle it. I'm like, that's it. An accident's going to happen. If that was a real truth, then everybody would be spitting out.
Right.
That is just my trauma speaking.
Right.
But what I do is I'm like, okay, yeah, same scenario, same story. But guess what? I'm different.
Yeah.
Let's try to move past this. Because then when we do slightly go back into that trauma again with great consciousness, I'm not saying stay in a bad situation.
Right.
What happens is that we integrate the wound. So we're not always polarizing. Now I don't have to go just find places to live like in Florida or California. Like, I could live anywhere. So I'm more free. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. I get it. Yeah, because that trauma that happened to you younger, you held on to that and it kind of like defined where you're going to go to just to kind of avoid that situation. But it's pretty much unavoidable because you're going to have to face it again at a certain point in life and then see how you're going to respond to that again. And so I totally get it. Yeah.
It's integration. And it's either living from fear or living from freedom. And we become masters of something, whatever that fear is, when we could go back to it with a different, greater consciousness that we're ready to integrate it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love that. People want to work with you. Now, you also have a fun retreat that's coming up. Tell us about the retreat.
Oh my gosh, the retreat is awesome. So any of the people out there, the labels of crazy and all that other good stuff with us psychics. And it's true. Like, if you look at what I am and look at people that, maybe in the past or now have issues, it's still the same thing. We hear voices, we hear sounds, we believe in God in a certain way. But, again, where I'm at, it's much more concrete.
Sure.
And approachable. But this retreat, I'm working with Dr. Jeffrey Tarrant, and him and I have been working together for a few years. And he is he's a neuroscientist, he's a meditation expert, and he scans the brains of us psychics and mediums.
Wow.
Yeah. And he finds that when we do readings, where the brain waves go, and how even through meditation. So he's finding ways in our brains that show that the old crazy label bits really aren't. They're like happenings.
Yeah.
And not that we all understand.
It's probably different than a person who does not do readings and stuff like that.
Right. Like, for instance, and Jeff explains this way better than me. And this is what we're going to be going over in the retreat. He's written a book called Becoming Psychic, Lessons from the Minds of Healers, Mediums, and Psychics. And I'm in that book as well, just in a little chapter. He's been working with people for a long time. And like, for instance, when I'm speaking, the language part of my brain is shut off. When I'm channeling, that's crazy. That's weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's like, whoa, what's that? And Jeff explains it way better. Probably just butchered it a million times. I'm not him. But when we come together, he hears what he knows. I share how I sustain this, because it's not just a place to go to once. It's an invitation.
Right.
Living there all the time with a greater non-label truth.
Yeah.
So us together, we're having so much fun really playing with this. Yeah. So that's what the retreat's all about.
Okay. So who would that be for? For other psychics or for people that are
No, for everyone. Anybody who wants to come. Yeah, we still have some spaces available. It's 3 days at the Inn in Spot Labredo, and we'll be doing a lot of somatic healing work, learning like different foods and stuff like that that can really get this intuition going within you, herbs, exercises, meditations. I'll be doing some readings there. We'll be reading each other. So
Yeah.
going into all areas, and everybody's welcome. Everybody.
Nice.
Yeah.
And where can people find information about, well, number one, to connect with you, and number two, about your retreat?
JeannineKim.com for sure. And I'm on Instagram, even though I'm not very good at techie stuff and I'm just new to Instagram. But it's called the mystic.JeannineKim. And
Okay.
but JeannineKim.com, my website, you can find everything.
Very cool. You guys will put those links in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Jeannine and the work that she does, go ahead and go click that link, go follow her on social, and reach out. Obviously, she's very lovely and be happy to hear from you. Jeannine, this is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
Don't be afraid of what you bring, and don't be afraid of empty. So if you're hearing something different in there, have a little cup of tea with it if you can. Just be with it for a moment before you decide maybe it's too scary, and learn how to trust it a bit.
Yeah.
Trust what you bring. Trust what you bring.
Beautiful. Well, I love what you do. And I feel like people like yourselves, are guides for the people that are lost, and that there's a special healing that happens when they connect with someone like you and allow themselves to be open to what truths you can help them find. Because, drugging ourselves and, certain types of, just typical therapy is not always going to lead the people to where they need to get to, because they don't have obviously drugs don't have the gifts, and therapists don't always have the gifts either. So it's a different type of healing that happens when someone connects with you. So I think it's beautiful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I do consider the whole self and the soul. So thank you so much. That's beautiful words. Thank you, Deanna. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'm back soon with more dynamic guests.